welcome back to Network Africa. Residents of Kenya's Mandera town still struggling with the realities of the aftermath of an attack in the town in which 12 people were killed. The bodies of those who lost their lives have been flown to a mortuary in the capital, Nairobi, as well as those who survived the attacks. Relatives and friends have been at the Kroma mortuary in the city to identify the dead, and the Red Cross officials are on hand to help and comfort them. Much of that will be needed. On Tuesday, the Somali-based Al-Shabab group said it was behind the raid which killed 12 people. Two of them were actors in a touring group. A group of theatre actors were at a hotel, actually, in Mandera when that attack occurred. In 24 hours, Al-Shabab carried out 3 attacks between Kenya and Somalia. Let's go to the VOA's Somali editor, Harun Maruf, who joins us from Washington. Harun, it's great to have you on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Is the government now convinced, and talk about the Kenyan government, is it now convinced that the attacks were carried out by Al-Shabaab? Because yesterday it said it was possibly an armed group, never mentioned Al-Shabaab.
Yeah, I think the authorities are convinced that Al-Shabaab was behind the attack. Al-Shabaab itself claimed responsibility for the attack. It says it killed 15 people, but of course we know that 12 people were killed. 10 of those were performers, as you mentioned it. The other 2 were also civilians in the hotel, Bishara Hotel in Mandera. You know, Mandera is just 3 or 4 kilometers from the Somali border, so it's very vulnerable to Al-Shabaab attacks. Al-Shabaab easily crosses the Boros border and finds its target in Mandera, and the police and the security forces have been struggling to contain Al-Shabaab attacks. In particular, this time of year, when there is a heavy rainy season, the roads are impassable, it's very easy Al-Shabaab to carry out these attacks and easily melt and go back across the border into Somalia and escape before Kenyan troops launch a counter-offensive and planes and helicopters fly so that they can target and trace these attackers. So Al-Shabaab is wreaking havoc in northern part of Kenya. Still, the level of attacks have decreased compared to how they were in 2014, but still Al-Shabaab is able to carry out any attack in northern parts of Kenya whenever it wants.
Harun, is it possible that, you know, Mandera is specifically important to Al-Shabaab, because this is a very unlikely spot for the group to attack?
Mandera is very important. You know, Al-Shabaab always exploits local conflicts. We see the Al-Shabaab attacks, but there is also local clan-based conflict in the area. That hostility has nothing to do with Al-Shabaab itself, but because of the hostility and the differences and lack of trust between the local communities, Al-Shabaab infiltrated, recruited people, embedded their fighters. They are spying on government positions, government installations, and this kind of hotels that are easy to attack, easy to create havoc and kill a lot of people. So this is what Al-Shabaab is doing to cause maximum casualties on civilians so that it will capture the international attention and the international media, and their message and what they are fighting for will be heard by the rest of the world, which is Kenya must withdraw its troops from Somalia. Kenya, we know, entered Somalia in 2011, and since then Al-Shabaab has been carrying out this regular, constant attacks in northern Kenya and in Nairobi as well, including the famous Westgate attack.
I can imagine, well, people in Somalia and in Kenya possibly living in fear. What's the situation like security-wise in these 2 countries?
The situation in Somalia is recovering from years of civil war, clan warfare, followed by warlordism, and now we have a war by militant organization Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is trying to overthrow the Somali government, and the Somali war by Al-Shabab is not just a Somali war. At the moment, we know African Union has troops in Somalia, Kenya has troops, Ethiopia has troops. We also have troops from Uganda, Burundi. So this is not a Somali conflict, it's also a regional conflict, it's a global conflict. Al-Shabab always expresses its intention to cause harm to other countries far away from Somalia, including the Western countries. We know Al-Shabaab carried out an attack in Kampala, in Ethiopia, in Djibouti, in Kenya. The only country that Al-Shabaab did not attack, that sent troops to Somalia, is Burundi, and they have issued a number of threats against the Burundian government.
Harun Maruf of the VOA, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thanks, my pleasure.
Well, as we end the program, we follow through the life of Na Oye Kate, who's getting a taxi to work in Ghana's capital, Accra, using the Uber app on her phone. Silicon Valley's Uber launched its online cab hailing service in the country in June, and clients like Kate are now finding it easier to get around town. The company uses a smartphone app and GPS technology to provide its cab services by linking customers with drivers near them. Kate's strippers cost her about $3 for a journey that she says would have been about $5 if she'd used an ordinary taxi. Traffic-clogged roads, high rates of urban crime and lack of credit cards are a big challenge that Uber faces in sub-Saharan Africa, where it already operates in 7 cities in South Africa, here in Nigeria and Kenya, and most recently in Tanzania and Uganda. But it is still popular for its cheaper fares and convenience, which in turn have seen many drivers enroll on the platform, which guarantees them clients.
It's very convenient. It's easy, it's accessible, and you don't have to struggle to bargain with taxi drivers or drivers because it gives you the actual amounts depending on the kilometers or the distance you cover. And the drivers too, they're nice. So far the ones I've come across are very cool. Their cars are neat and they treat you well, like the way a customer deserves to be treated.
Before then I wasn't working, and I tried a lot of companies. I couldn't get any response, but thank God Uber employed me, and at least I'm able to make my home, and now I'm not depending on my family. I'm not depending on any friend. At least I can live on my own.
We're very excited by the demand that we've seen. It's been some of the strongest demand that we've seen across sort of markets in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. There's been a very real, very organic demand. The drivers that we've seen, the job opportunities that we've created. So we have, we're looking at creating over 1,000 job opportunities by the end of the year at the current pace, which is a huge story that we want to tell.
That brings us to Destination Point on Network Africa. Thanks for watching. I am Amarachi Ubani.